Hey filmmakers, sitting in front of me here I have the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K, and I had this all built out for a full shoulder rig. It's a little bit more broken down now, but as you can see it's still really big and heavy and clunky, and that's just not always the right setup for every shoot that you got to do, especially when you're doing traveling and running and gunning. This is just too bulky. I mean, I've got 18-inch rails on there, the huge VMount battery and plates, and of course we have the matte box on there. So all of that combined can really just add up and make it too cumbersome to want to bring around with you. So instead, what I've sought out to do is make the smallest little cinema camera that I possibly can. And so in order to do that, I'm actually going to be using the Fujifilm X-T4, because this camera just has a much smaller footprint than something like the Pocket 4K or 6K. So what I've already done, of course, is put the X-T4 into this small rig cage. They're affordable, they're sleek, I really like them. The next thing we're gonna add to this setup is a base plate. Now this is one from Small Rig for 15mm rail rods, and I just have a little 1/4-20 thread there, and I'm gonna put that on the bottom of the cage here. And then right underneath this base plate, I'm gonna put a Manfrotto 502 quick release plate so that I can slide this right on and off of a tripod or slider really easily. I wanna show you guys what I've been using for years, and these are just some simple 15mm rods from Small Rig, and then this Foca VMount base plate. So I'm gonna get this slid in here, and then I'm gonna throw this 99 watt-hour D&O battery on the back. And you can already see just how big this rig is once you add this to it. It's pretty bulky and heavy, and there's just a lot of mass here in the back of the rig, which makes it, you know, a little bit more heavy to carry around all day, especially if you're doing a lot of handheld shooting. And then of course you got the huge rails. But for this rig, I wanted to get rid of the rails completely and see if I could downsize this V-mount battery and V-mount plate size here in the back, because really this is the most bulky part of it. And here's the thing, the X-T4 now has a flip out screen, and if you want to get to the back of the monitor here, it's a little bit difficult to do. So let's say I loosen this up, well, it doesn't swing back all the way, and I try to open this little flip out screen, it's hitting. So I'd actually have to back up these rails even further or take this off to be able to get this screen to flip out, because this just doesn't flop back any further. So that presents a bit of a problem. And we just flip the monitor around and leave it in place against the back of the camera. It's still pretty difficult to get to the things on the back of the display, and obviously it's a little bit hard to see and touch them because there's not a lot of space here for your hand to get in. It gets a little bit cramped. So to make this a little bit smaller, I want to show you what I came up with next. So let's take these rails back off, and then we're gonna grab this Small Rig V-mount plate, and this is just a basic one that they sell, and I thought, hey, this would be cool. I could just mount this directly to the back here and see what that looks like. So on the back of this 15mm base plate, there are actually two 15mm thread holes, which are perfect for mounting this V-mount base plate. The nice thing about it is it's super flush with the back of the camera. It really doesn't add anything significant to the bulk of this camera. So let's get the V-mount battery slid on there. And there we go. So obviously this is really compact, but this V-mount battery is pretty big. So it's obviously sticking off the bottom about 1 inch, which isn't great because when you set it down, you know, it's getting kind of lopsided there. And of course, if I want to get to the back of the camera, I can't get to it. It's literally impossible to get to because this base plate is fixed in place. I have to literally unscrew these screws, take it off, and then change my settings. So something like that clearly isn't going to work either. So back to the drawing board. What I came up with I think is pretty cool and pretty sleek, so stick around because it's coming next. Let's go ahead and add the other accessories really quickly so you can see what we're working with. So for a top handle, I'm using this little one from Small Rig. I've shown this on the channel multiple times, but it's one of my favorites because of how low profile and small it is. And I'm gonna link to all these different parts in the description below. So if you're interested in picking any of them up, just check out the links below, it's all there. The next part is one of my favorite pieces from SmallRig, and this is the Airy locating pin monitor mount. And it just goes right here on the front of the top handle to keep everything low profile and have a nice low center of gravity. Okay, now we're gonna add an external monitor, and I'm using the Atomos Ninja V inside of the 8-sin cage. And I really like this one because it's sleek and it's a little bit more affordable than the one that SmallRig offers. And on the back of the Ninja, I have their little adapter that allows you to add continuous power to the monitor. The next accessory that we can't shoot without is a variable ND filter. And I've decided to go with the screw-on version so that we minimize the overall bulk of the rig. And this is just a simple one from Tiffin that goes right on the front here of my lens. So here's a brand new piece from SmallRig that I saw come out on their website, and I had to buy it. As soon as I ordered it because this thing is perfect for what I need. It has these two little 15mm rod stumps that stick out, and then you have this little hinge on the back. And so you can loosen it up and then it'll swing around, and you can put it wherever you want and tighten it back down. And it has a couple different 1/4-20 threads on the back, 6 of them here, so you can mount something like a VMount battery. So because I'm using this 15mm rod base plate from SmallRig, I can actually just slide this piece right into the back here, and it fits perfectly in there. And what I like to do is just get it flush right up against that base plate so there's not any extra gap or anything. Now, the cool thing about this is because those 15mm rods are so short, they're not even like an inch long, it's not sticking out here out the front of the rig like you saw earlier when I was using the full 15mm rods. SmallRig also just released this tiny little V-mount adapter, and this is the smallest one that I've ever seen. And so again, as soon as I saw this released on their website, I was like, all right, I'm buying it. You actually can't find either of these parts on Amazon yet, I don't think anyways. They're just on SmallRig's website. So if you want to buy them, they're still kind of in like a pre-order phase, but they are shipping. So definitely check them out. And they're both pretty cheap. I think this was around $20 and this piece was around $25, something like that. So it has these two 1/4-20 threads that actually line up perfectly with the 1/4-20 threads on the back of this hinge. So I'm gonna get that screwed into place now, and I'm gonna show you why it's best to mount this upside down. But first, let's mount it right side up. So now I'm gonna grab my V-mount battery, and this is actually a brand new V-mount battery from Yin Chem, and this thing is awesome. It's actually 99 watt hours, the same as this larger V-mount battery that's also 99 watt hours. But look at the size difference between these. This one's only 4 inches tall, and it's about 2 inches thick, the same as this one, but it's only 3 inches wide, so it's also not nearly as wide. Much smaller battery, but still the same amount of power and capacity. So this just makes a huge difference. Now, this is a little over a pound. It's about 1.5 pounds roughly. I'll put the exact number on the screen for you guys. But something like this is perfect for a little mini cinema rig. So I'm just really impressed with this. I do want to talk a little bit more about this battery because they actually just sent this out to me for a review, and I was like, another V-mount battery. I don't know how exciting that is, but this is actually one of the coolest V-mount batteries that I've ever used. So besides the obvious smallness and compactness of this, there's a couple really cool features to it. First of all, it has 2 D-tap ports on it, which are really handy for plugging in other accessories directly into the battery. And then on the top of it here, you have 2 USB ports, and these are your standard USB-A, and they do 5 volts output. Besides having all these nice extra ports on the battery, you also get a sweet little LCD screen on the top, so you can actually see how much battery life is left and where your voltage is sitting at. Right now I have it at 100%. Having a screen on the battery is obviously really helpful to see your exact battery percentage over something like this that just uses little LED indicators, which is nice, but only gives you a general range so you don't know exactly how much battery life you actually have left. And of course, one of my favorite parts of this is the general aesthetic of this battery. That carbon fiber look just looks really awesome. So let's get this slid onto the back of the camera now, and I'll show you why having the V-mount battery mounted upright is not actually my favorite because, again, that V-mount battery sticks out a little bit and causes the camera to kind of tilt forward when you set it down. So I don't really like where that's landing. What I'm gonna do is actually take this little V-mount adapter and turn it upside down, and you'll see what it does for the rig. Now this is mounted upside down, and that may seem a little bit strange, but the nice thing about V-mount batteries is they do lock into place, so you don't have to worry about it actually slipping off. Let's get this V-mount battery mounted on here. And then now you can see how the V-mount battery sits much higher and isn't actually hanging off the bottom of the rig at all. And then with this little hinge on the back, I can change the position of this battery anywhere I want it, but I'm gonna lean it all the way forward against the back of the camera. Now you see just how compact and flush this rig is looking. It's pretty sleek and awesome. That little battery looks like it was just made to sit on the back of something like the X-T4. So very, very cool and compact. And the way that this is weighted feels really nice in the hand. And obviously it's gonna provide even more image stabilization to everything besides the in-body image stabilization already on this camera. Now you may be thinking, well, that's still dumb because your V-mount battery is right up against that back monitor, so you can't see any of your settings or change anything if you need to. Well, let me show you how to do that. It's extremely simple. You just turn this one knob and the whole thing drops out of the way completely. That's it. And then I can get to my back display, change any of my settings that I need to, and then when I'm done changing settings, put it up with one hand and literally turn the knob, and you're done. And the V-mount battery is back in a good position, and everything's nice, and the rails aren't way sticking out with this weird gap in between your V-mount battery and the display. Now, let's say that you don't want the screen covered up at all. Well, that's fine. The X-T4 obviously has that flip out screen. So I'm gonna pull this down and then just rotate the screen around, and I can put the whole thing back into place just like that. And then now I can always shoot with the V-mount battery completely flush up against the back of the camera, but still have my settings right here and still have a large monitor up here for getting my focus and exposure and everything like that. So this is another beautiful way to shoot with this camera rig. The battery life when using this 99 watt-hour battery to power the X-T4 and the Ninja V continuously recording in ProRes 4.5 hours. Which is incredible. Of course, I haven't plugged in any of the cables yet, so I do want to plug those in real quick and show you guys what that actually looks like. So let's get all the cables plugged in. The cable that I'm using to power the X-T4 is actually just a USB to USB-C cable because I actually haven't found a dummy battery for the X-T4 yet. If you guys know of any dummy batteries for the X-T4, please leave a comment below because I'd love to pick one up and power the camera that way. So really I'm just plugging this into the USB port on the bottom of this V-mount battery and then into the side of the USB-C port on the camera. Now, there are a couple things to know about powering the X-T4 off of USB, and you need to know these things, so pay attention. You cannot power the X-T4 off of USB-C power without an internal battery inside of the camera. So right now the battery is in there, and you need to make sure that you actually charge up that X-T4 battery, because if it's really dead and you go and you plug in something like this, well, the camera may not turn on because it's such a slow trickle. That USB-C port does not charge up the battery very quickly, so it'll take a really long time to charge. So the best way to run this rig is make sure you have a fully powered X-T4 battery in the camera already, and then you plug the V-mount battery in via USB-C and turn it all on, and then the camera will last a really long time. It's a little bit strange, but basically you need a good battery inside there to kind of regulate the power, and it'll still draw its power from the V-mount battery. Finally, we have a D-tap cable that I'm going to plug in with a little barrel connector right into the back of the Ninja V. There we go, we've got full power, and it's all running off of this teeny tiny V-mount battery that has a lot of power packed into it. And you can see that this is running off of the V-mount battery because that little plug icon is directly over the battery. So it is drawing power from the V-mount battery. Personally, I don't usually like shooting with the flip out screen out like this because it can kind of get in the way and I'm worried about hitting it. So I'm gonna just bring this V-mount battery right back down, flip the screen in, and then just lock it right back into place. Really quickly, I'm just gonna use a little bread tie and do some quick cable management on this so nothing snags or gets in the way. A rig like this is perfect for all those handheld shoots where you need a lot of battery life. Obviously, you can also throw this right onto a tripod with that quick release plate or a slider, and that's gonna work awesome also. The only thing where this really isn't gonna work great is when you need to get it onto a gimbal. If you need to fly your camera on a gimbal, obviously you're gonna have to do some breakdown before this is ready to fly. Guys, if you wanna see more videos like this, hit subscribe right now because I have a ton more videos coming out on rig builds, lighting, shooting, editing, everything like that, and you don't wanna miss it. All right, I'll see you in the next video.